This wasn't a documentary. This was a controlled demolition. Not to expose the truth, but to decide who gets burned and who walks away untouched. Because according to Jaguar Wright, Sean Diddy Combs didn't just fall. He was pushed, positioned, and packaged as the perfect sacrifice, while the real power players quietly disappeared from the screen. And the most dangerous part? The public was never supposed to notice what was missing.
You call them dark days if you're able to elude them, never fully, thoroughly be investigated for them, never have to go to court, be tried, or go to jail like everybody else has to when they do crazy stuff.
It's not like they skipped the dark days.
Jaguar isn't talking about Diddy here. She's talking about the others, the ones who somehow always escape the spotlight, the ones whose names never make the final cut, the ones whose dark days somehow look more like bad press weeks, followed by quiet redemption tours. That's the pattern she's pointing at, and that's where the story starts to get uncomfortable. This documentary sold the illusion of accountability, but Jaguar says it delivered something else entirely: selective accountability. Diddy became the symbol, the headline, the monster everyone could point at. But behind that image, something was quietly happening in the edit room.
These people aren't sorry. So there is no real redemption. What there is stealing justice away from your victims. What there is getting away with red rum. What there is showing mass public that if you have enough money, you can get away with anything.
That line cuts deeper than it sounds, because if redemption requires accountability, and accountability leads to consequences, then skipping accountability means skipping guilt. And if guilt never lands, then the system isn't broken, it's working exactly as designed. This is where Jaguar flips the entire narrative. She doesn't deny wrongdoing. She doesn't deny victims. She doesn't deny horror. What she challenges is why only one name survived the edit. Because when the footage started rolling, when people began talking, when stories leaked out, suddenly the math stopped adding up.
People are coming forward and now admitting that other celebrities were involved in these parties. But that's wild, because Touré sat here online and said no other celebrities were involved. And then I'm a liar. No other celebrities were involved. I'm a liar.
Yeah,
it was just Diddy and Cassie and a couple of the girls, no other celebrities.
Yeah, how did we miss where Little Rod showed footage of him and Cuba Gooding in the Red Room? And that, like, where's Cuba in the documentary? Where's Cuba during the trial?
No, where's Stevie J?
Where's Stevie J?
Where's Steven Jordan? We should turn it into like one of those cartoons, like Where's Waldo? And see if we can find him in that goofy ass smile. Where are these people? Because Steven Jordan was at the house on Star Island where all of those weird, crazy things was happening in the Little Rod when the house got raided. Y'all remember?
Yeah.
He was there for the raid. So how was he there for the raid and he wasn't in the documentary?
That's the moment the illusion cracks. Other celebrities, other witnesses, other footage. But when the documentary dropped, they were gone. No explanation, no follow-up, no context, just erased. Jaguar isn't asking subtle questions here. She's asking the kind that make people nervous. If certain people were present, if certain people were named, if certain people were recorded, then why does the final story feel so neatly incomplete? Why does one man carry the entire weight while others fade into silence? And then she says the quiet part out loud.
That they are sanitizing this whole crime scene of a mess to let the industry off the hook and just blame it all on Diddy.
Sanitizing, not investigating, not exposing, sanitizing. That word changes everything. Because sanitizing isn't about truth, it's about containment. It's about scrubbing away details that might spread. It's about controlling damage before it reaches the wrong names. And suddenly, the documentary stops looking like journalism and starts looking like risk management. Jaguar points directly at the machine behind it all. PR teams, lawyers, labels, not reacting after the fact, but scrambling in real time.
And now the management and the PR team and the label are all scrambling. And they got TMZ doing damage control just like they was doing for the deadlift. This is all about saving the industry.
saving the industry. Not the victims, not the truth, not accountability, the industry. And that's where 50 Cent's name enters the conversation. Not as a rapper, not as a personality, but as executive producer. The man whose name is stamped on the project, but whose actual influence, Jaguar suggests, may be far more complicated. Because when you're the executive producer, you don't just watch the story unfold, you help decide what stays in and what never sees daylight. That's not a throwaway accusation. That's a power map. Big money, big advertisers, big interests that don't survive public implosion. And suddenly, the missing clips make sense. Because if this story went where Jaguar says it could go, if every name was included, if every connection was shown, then this wouldn't be a Diddy story anymore. It would be an industry collapse. Which brings us to the footage nobody's allowed to see. Hundreds of hours, not minutes, not snippets, hundreds. And somehow, only a carefully curated fraction reached the public. Jaguar doesn't claim to know exactly where it all went. She's asking something far more dangerous. Who decided it shouldn't be seen? Because footage doesn't disappear by accident. Narratives don't shape themselves. Someone always chooses. And when those choices consistently protect the same people, when the edits always point in the same direction, that's not coincidence. That's design. That sentence is the spine of this entire story. Diddy isn't innocent in Jaguar's version of events. He's useful. Useful as the lightning rod. Useful as the fall guy. Useful as the name that absorbs the outrage so others don't have to. And the most chilling part? Jaguar says this isn't even the end. Because the truth, the full truth, hasn't been told yet. That's not a warning. That's a reason. A reason for silence. A reason for edits. A reason certain clips never made the final cut. Because when billions are at stake, truth becomes negotiable. And the documentary stops being about exposure and starts being about survival. The most dangerous lie isn't what you're told. It's what you're never shown. Because once Jaguar Wright says the industry was saved, the next question becomes unavoidable. Saved from what? According to Jaguar, this documentary wasn't meant to open doors. It was meant to close them quietly. Close conversations, close investigations, close curiosity, all while giving the public just enough shock to feel satisfied, without ever letting that shock spread outward. That's why she keeps coming back to one haunting idea. This story was finished before it ever aired. Not in the courtroom, not in the streets, but in the edit bay. Jaguar says when documentaries are done too well, that's usually the first red flag. Because raw truth is messy, it contradicts itself, it pulls in unexpected names. But this story, it landed clean, focused, contained. Almost too perfect. She points out that entire timelines were blurred together. Separate cases suddenly overlapped. Unrelated tragedies became convenient distractions. Noise replaced clarity. And while the public argued online, the real cleanup allegedly happened behind the scenes. Lawyers stopped talking. Executives went silent. PR teams disappeared into no comment mode. Not because there was nothing to say, but because saying the wrong thing could open the floodgates. Jaguar makes it clear, this wasn't panic after the documentary. This was pre-planned insulation, because she believes some of the most explosive material was never meant to be attached to Diddy at all. It was attached to everyone else. And that's when she introduces one of her most unsettling claims, that fake cases, weak cases, and sloppy lawsuits weren't accidents, they were weapons. Weapons used to poison the well. Her argument is brutal in its simplicity. If the public sees multiple cases fall apart, if they watch accusations collapse, if they hear allegedly enough times, eventually they stop believing anyone, including real victims. And once disbelief spreads, the system wins. Jaguar suggests some cases were never meant to succeed. They were meant to fail loudly, so the real stories could be buried quietly. That way, when legitimate claims surface, they're dismissed as more noise. Not evidence, not testimony, just noise. She calls it propaganda, not the obvious kind, the subtle kind. The kind that doesn't silence people, it overwhelms them. This is where the story turns from scandal into something darker. Because Jaguar doesn't stop at editing or missing footage. She points directly at narrative engineering. She says certain voices were elevated not because they were credible, but because they were controllable. YouTubers, bloggers, talking heads, people hungry for clicks, not accountability. People who repeat what they're fed. People who never ask the next question. Meanwhile, anyone who did ask the next question was labeled unstable, bitter, jealous, or crazy, especially her. Jaguar doesn't deny that she's controversial. She embraces it. Because in her words, controversy is cheaper than truth. It's easier to attack the messenger than explain the message. She reminds viewers that many of the things she said years ago were laughed off, until they weren't. Until they quietly resurfaced as new revelations, with her name removed. And that, she says, is part of the same system. Erase the source, repackage the information, control the reaction. Then she turns the spotlight back to 50 Cent, not personally, but symbolically. As the face of the project, the name everyone recognizes, the shield between Netflix and responsibility. Jaguar doesn't say he personally cut footage. She says something more dangerous, that his presence allowed others to do it. Because when a project carries a trusted name, people stop asking who's really in charge. She questions why someone so central to the story, someone present for years, someone with deep personal ties, barely appeared at all. No commentary, no deep reflection, no accountability, just branding. And branding is powerful. It makes people feel like they're watching rebellion, when they're actually watching containment. Jaguar then drops the most chilling theory of all, that the footage didn't vanish. It was redistributed. She hints at terabytes of data changing hands quietly, footage moving from raids to servers, from evidence to assets. And suddenly, clips begin appearing in places they shouldn't. Out of context, uncredited, weaponized. She warns that when footage leaks selectively, it's not exposure, it's control. Because whoever holds the archive controls the future narrative. Jaguar says this story isn't over, because it can't be. Not while footage still exists. Not while names remain hidden. Not while money is still protecting silence. She predicts more documentaries, more interviews, more exclusive revelations, but each one will allegedly follow the same rule. Expose enough to shock. Hide enough to survive. And then she explains why she keeps speaking, despite the backlash, despite the threats, despite the attempts to discredit her. Because, according to Jaguar, if the truth ever fully connects, if all the dots line up, if every name is spoken, then this isn't a scandal, it's a reckoning. She paints a future where the entertainment industry faces something it can't spin. Not lawsuits, not bad press, but collapse. Sponsors pulling out, brands distancing themselves, money drying up. And that's why, she says, the system needs villains like Diddy, single points of failure, sacrificial figures. People whose downfall satisfies public outrage without threatening the structure itself. Jaguar doesn't ask viewers to blindly believe her. She asks them to notice patterns. Who disappears? Who survives? Who benefits? She asks one final question that lingers long after the documentary ends. If this was really about truth, why does it feel like the truth was edited for safety? Because according to Jaguar Wright, the most dangerous footage isn't what we saw, it's what we didn't. And until that footage surfaces, the industry isn't exposed, it's protected.